My name is William Gash. I'm in the software engineering program at the University of West Florida. My project is software configuration management of the Operation Maintenance Enterprise System. My client is Endyne Incorporated. I am also employed at Endyne as a network administrator. Endyne is a high-tech firm that manages large, complex government contracts, including the Eglin Air Force Base Range Operation and Maintenance Contract. This contract manages the local military test ranges, and employees collect mission data at those ranges. Various types of data are stored on the Operation Maintenance Enterprise System, or OMS. OMS is a collection of database applications that are managed by the client and is part of the larger Test Wing Enterprise System located on an Air Force server where Air Force engineers can access the data. The project involves the planning, installation, testing, and documentation of software configuration management on OMS. Software configuration management is needed on OMS for several reasons. The biggest reason is software version control is needed to track any changes that are made. Other reasons are protection against large data loss through rollback support, to allow more than one developer or a team to work on a project at the same time, to allow the Test Wing Enterprise System to become fully compliant. The Test Wing and Eglin Air Force Base are mentioned several times in this presentation, but they are not a client for this project. But because OMS resides on their server, completion of this project will also help them make their server compliant. This slide shows the project organizational chart. The project developer is myself. The client is Endyne Incorporated, and the client point of contact is Marcia Holland. The project mentor is Dr. Donna Lohr at the University of West Florida. Client developers, test wing engineers, and network administrators will also be involved in the project. Because the requirements were well understood, a systematic sequential approach was used for this project. For that reason, I chose the waterfall method. The requirements analysis and the planning and estimates phases were completed in semester 1. At the end of semester 1, client approval permitted work to begin on the next phases, including software installation and configuration and testing. During the requirement analysis phase, the software requirements and the software and hardware configuration requirements were examined, and any risks were evaluated. During the planning and estimates phase, the methodology was created, a budget for software, hardware, and man-hours was generated, a timeline and deliverable documentation were generated. During the software installation and configuration phase, software was installed and configured on workstations and servers. During the testing phase, testing was done to make sure the developers can use the software to link to the test wing folders, that the developers can check out and check in software, that the version control tool is working, and that backups are being made. During the client approval phase, the client was presented with deliverables, shown the final presentation, and will be approving the project. In the production phase, the client will start using the SCM process in production. The servers will have Microsoft Server 2008 Standard and Microsoft SQL Server 2008. The workstations will have Microsoft Windows 7 operating system, Microsoft Visual Studio 2010, Microsoft Team Foundation Server Tools, Microsoft Power Tools, and Microsoft Team Explorer installed. For the software and hardware configuration requirements, developers' workstations are connected to the Air Force network, and will have the ability to connect to servers that are also on the Air Force land. Team Foundation server software installed on workstations will be able to connect to the folders on the test wing server. Access permissions were granted so developers have access to the required folders. The biggest risk associated with this project was the possibility of having to purchase the Microsoft Team Foundation server software. Government budgets are tight, and the client expressed concern about possibly having to purchase the software. I was able to determine the Team Foundation server software is included as part of Visual Studio 2010, which the client already has. During the planning and estimates phase, a methodology was created. This waterfall method was seen in a previous slide. During the planning and estimates phase, a timeline was generated. Shown are the first two phases completed during the first semester, the requirements analysis phase, the planning and estimates phase, the tasks associated with each phase, and the start and completion dates. Timeline projections for the second semester were made and were recently completed. Shown are the software installation and configuration phase, the testing phase, the client approval phase, and the production phase. During the planning and estimates phase, a project budget was generated. The project is broken down for individuals involved in the project, the number of hours they worked, and their rate per hour, giving subtotals and a final total. Phases 1 and 2 were complete during the first semester, and phases 3 through 6 were completed during the second semester. The budget does not show entries for software because no additional software had to be purchased. During the planning and estimates phase, project deliverables were generated. Interim deliverables were presented at the end of the first semester. Final versions were presented at the conclusion of the project. This chart shows the change request process. Anyone who uses an application can submit a change request. The Change Control Board will either approve or disapprove a change request. If approved, lines of code will be placed in a control folder where developers will check out the lines of code, make changes, and check the code back in. From there, testing will be performed before it is put into production. Changes to a large number of lines of code will be reviewed by the Change Control Board to make sure requirements and programming standards are met. This slide shows the operating environment. Workstations and servers are on the Air Force land. The Operation Maintenance Enterprise System is part of the larger Test Wing Enterprise System and is located on a Test Wing server. My client maintains the Operation Maintenance Enterprise System, which consists of database applications that are used by the Test Wing engineers as a source of information. Phase 3 of the project is the software installation and configuration phase. For software installation, all the required software that was not already installed on workstations and servers was installed. For software configuration, Team Foundation server software on workstations was configured to map to the Test Wing's Team Foundation server folders. Access permissions were granted so developers have access to the required folders. Phase 4 was the testing phase. Endign software developers and Test Wing engineers were involved in the testing phase. Tests included starting the software and associated plugins, mapping and connecting to the TestWing Team Foundation server, making sure the developers could see folder structures in Team Explorer and could see software or projects in those folders, making sure the developers could check out and check software into the version control tool, locking software that is being worked on, that it was possible to revert to an earlier version of software in the version control tool, and making sure that backups were running. Test results were discussed and all tests successfully passed. When a developer opens Microsoft Visual Studio, they have an option to connect to Team Foundation server. Developers will need to know the name of the Team Foundation server they want to connect to and the correct port number. Logon credentials will have to be provided to gain access to Team Foundation server. Credentials will be either a username and password or smart card credentials. A developer can select one or more team projects to connect to. Team Explorer will open showing the project's folder structure. The source control area is where documents or segments of code can be checked out and checked back in after modification. Information such as the name of the item that was checked out, the changes that were made, who made the changes, and when the changes were made are saved. A Team Foundation server web interface is available for authenticated users to view and check out items such as documents. When opening a document, authenticated users have a choice to read only or check out and edit the document. A drop-down menu can also be used to perform tasks such as checking out a document or viewing its version history. Items that are checked out can be viewed but only modified by the individual or team that checked it out. Phase 5 was the client approval phase. At the conclusion of the testing phase, the client was briefed on the entire project. The client received final versions of deliverables, a final report, and a final presentation. The client acknowledged the project as being complete and signed an acceptance letter. The client now has the opportunity to start using the software configuration management process on production items. Phase 6 is the production phase. The final phase of the project is when the client begins using the SCM process on production software. This concludes the presentation, and thank you for watching.